Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again. Hi, Barry. How are you doing? Are you over your cold, I hope?
Much better now. Thank you, Del. Good to be here and looking forward to a good chat today.
Yes. I was just saying to Barry that I'm always very aware of or rather subjects come up that are present in my life or my client's life or my friends' lives. And this one is very much present in my life right now. And as many of you know, I live in Malibu, and we have been incredibly impacted by the LA fires. And so it's been quite a stressful situation. And on many levels. And I've noticed that, particularly about myself, when it comes to the subject of fight, flight, or freeze, where I tend to land the most. And so I thought it'd be a great, I was saying to Barry, if it's happening to me, it's happening to everybody. So to some degree or another. So just for those that might be going, what's this fight, flight, or freeze? I'm sure most of you know, but just in case, it's the body's automatic response to perceived or real danger, and it's our nervous system that just kicks into gear, and we have no control over it. It's just an immediate reaction, and it was originally it's for our survival. It's part of our evolution to survive, and the flight being the or fight rather being the rush of adrenaline and aggression for survival, the flight to obviously escape from danger. But sometimes we actually freeze, and we become immobile. And actually, when I think about it, in certain situations, they say in encounters with a wild animal, it is to play dead, to not to fight, be aggressive, not to run, but to play dead. So there is a place for all of these reactions. And I think our awareness on how we tend to have a bit of a set point that we tend to go to. We can do all of them, but there tends to be a main one that is our go-to, not intentionally, but just that's our default set point. And
Right.
and awareness around that is so important in a relationship, because number one, you can take responsibility. Or if you are being, triggered and you have that response, you can learn that, hang on a minute, this is mostly just where I've learned or how I've learned to react in a situation. And is it really appropriate in this situation? And so I think it's a great, as we always say in the show, it's all about self-awareness.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and how knowing ourselves allows us to be a better partner in a relationship. So I know where I land mostly. But before I go to me, I want Barry to talk about his views on this, and where he finds himself going most of the time. So Barry.
The thing about there is actually a fourth F when I'm talking about, which is not about physical danger, but it's certainly about interpersonal relationships, which is fawn. It basically means to play into or to sort of acquiesce and be nice to try and overcome the person's aggression. Because the thing is, a lot of these conversations, fight, flight, or freeze, are really about perceived or experienced aggression from somebody else or feeling threat from. So,
Mhm.
not necessarily danger as in physical danger, it can be almost emotional danger too. And
Mm.
so how we react and respond can sometimes be one of those four different layers because, as you said, it's what we learn pretty much as children how to survive in a family dynamic. And so it becomes the best case survival technique that we use to get through a situation or circumstance.
Yeah, I just
Right?
say something very quick. I love that fourth one, and I hadn't heard. When you said it, I remember, but I hadn't remembered it this morning when I was thinking
Mhm.
about it. But the first three, 100% are usually in a response, not just to a physical danger, but to an emotional threat and
Right.
to aggression of another. So it all fits in the same way. And I love that there's a fourth one we can talk about too. So
Yeah.
where do you land, Barry?
Mm. Well, I know because growing up, we talked about this before about being bullied in school and other things too. Flight was my go-to because the best thing to do was escape the danger because I didn't feel confident to fight the danger, and I knew freezing wouldn't save me because I still get pummeled if I did staying in place. And frankly, fawning didn't work either because I couldn't persuade them not to do what they're doing. So for me, flight was the go-to. It was the default because running away was safety, and frankly, it was not something I was very proud of because I thought I should stand up to these people. I should still be tough and everything else, but I knew I couldn't. It's like this split inside where I was like wanted to but couldn't, and realized that flight was my safety mechanism because it was the best I could go. In my family, there was no real danger, so I didn't have those playing out that way. It's more about external to my family when I was raised with. So, yeah, flight was my go-to.
Yeah. It's and I think I think we change as we grow as well, and I think what might have worked as a child, because we're so helpless as a child, might not work later in life, and we can develop. Another one will come forward at a certain time in life. Because I'm reflecting back as a young child, I probably was the flight as well, but sort of internally. I'd internally sort of disassociate. I would leave that way.
Yeah.
So it was a way of flight. But I do know, I see as I got older, my minds tends to be fight.
Mm-hmm.
And not with just general people, but certainly in my relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I, I can I can get quite feisty and I will fight, but I'm very, very aware once I've calmed down that it comes from fear. I get feisty when I'm afraid, and I feel and emotionally afraid, not physically afraid. I'm talking about, and even in my past when there was some sort of maybe some suggestion of physical abuse, there was a fight in me too. I think maybe that's where that developed, that fighting about whether it's emotional, physical, whatever the threat is. But yeah, I'm very aware that I feel this rush of the adrenaline to fight when my perceived safety is threatened, or and it comes up in the weirdest situations. It's like just just if somebody, if my partner shows a side of them that I didn't know before, or didn't or don't like, or see us as not being aligned and being in harmony with each other, I notice I can get a little aggressive. And it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's because I feel the relationship is threatened. It's like in my head, unconsciously, it's going, oh God, no. How are we going to work together? This is not a good fit. Oh God, that means it's the end of my relationship. So I get into this very feisty state. But the fact that I am aware of it, and I know that that instinct to fight is coming from fear, I can
Mm-hmm.
catch it so fast, and I can apologize, and I can say, I'm so sorry. The emotions overtook me. My response wasn't warranted. It was more than you just having a very, say it's a political situation or something like that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
thankfully, most of the time, my partner and I are on the same page politically,
Right.
but there could be something, um, all being completely transparent here. He is from Israel, so that
Mm-hmm.
was what the last, discords was around the Israeli-Palestinian situation. It actually happened in the Oscars because there was an Oscar given to an Israeli and a Palestinian filmmaker, and I
Right.
was really heartened by it, and thought it was a wonderful thing, and blah blah blah. And he had some other views, and we just started talking and debating, and then I started to feel this aggression growing in me. And
Mm-hmm.
I realized it was because I was like, oh, we're not as aligned as I thought we were on this subject. So it's so interesting. But again, what could have, in the past would have blown up into something that was finger pointing and everything. The fact that I could catch myself the second that rise in emotion starts coming. I'm like, where's this coming from? Why am I feeling so strongly? What's happening right now? And it is that fight, flight, or freeze response. And fawn. We'll add the fawn in there.
Right. But yes, a question to ask you because it came up when you were talking. because there's two parts of the fight part, which is, are you fighting for something or fighting against something? So in that relationship, is what's showing up is the desire to fight for the relationship because you fear it may be changing, or you're
Yeah.
fighting against that. It's like, because that's the thing with fighting is you can have different modalities of what you're fighting about, for or against something. So just in this conversation, there's sub modalities in a way.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm fighting for the relationship. I'm fighting for the closeness and the connection that I believe we have. And at that moment, I'm perceiving this huge difference in views as a threat to the relationship. So therefore, I'm fighting to and again, I suppose by my willingness to really say, hey, not make the other person wrong, but to just say, hey, what is going on with you that you have such a strong reaction here? If I was fighting to be right, I would just keep making the other person
Yeah,
wrong. But yeah, so no, it's a fighting for the relationship, fighting for that compatibility, that understanding each other, being on the same page, all those things that we talk about in relationship. So talk about
yeah.
again, I think it's always great to give examples of our own life. So are you still would you say in your relationships now, out of those four, very sort of your nervous system responses, do you still tend to be one that goes into the flight, or are you, where would you see yourself settling more if you're going to get triggered? Only
Well,
if,
the
with all the
only
work you
to never get triggered. Oh, no, right.
do.
No, the thing is that it's interesting because I've been watching. I am noticing myself become much more like in the moment, catching myself in the feeling of something without actually doing it. So the flight feeling has come up a few times, but I haven't been acting on it. So I've definitely been catching myself. But I'm aware of, particularly when it comes to beliefs being, I guess the word I use is attacked. When my beliefs are being challenged in a conversation, or someone's posting things that I'm finding a bit of an issue with, I tend to find myself getting into a fight mode. And it may be because there's less stakes involved, because when it's that sort of thing, the beliefs and things I know have low stakes. So I guess it's easy for me to say, I'm going to fight for this and make it important. But I have just definitely had some um, disconnections with certain people in my life. I'm trying to use clean terms, because I was fighting for what I positioned myself in, and they were fighting for theirs, and we weren't getting along. So there was no understanding between us, which isn't helping anybody. But that's just the way it was ending up being, because of what's happening politically, regionally, geographically, and things like that as well. And so I found myself definitely getting defensive, which is a form of fighting as well, rather than running away. So it shifted for me.
Yeah, yeah. And again, as I said, I think it's possibly um, something that comes with age, that we in the sense of we're more, well, a few things actually. Like I said, I think as a young child we are sort of defenseless in many ways, so that the flight is a very, or a fawn is a very natural thing for a young child to do for their survival, which is to sort of placate their parent or whoever is in that moment an aggressor, or to hide from it, or things like that. But I also think as we grow and evolve and are less of the people pleaser we used to be, that we have a little bit more of that backbone or that fight in us to stand by who we are, what we believe, and what we think. And it's not again to fight in the sense of making somebody else wrong, but we're actually defending ourselves. We're fighting for our right to acknowledge how we feel. So I
Right.
think that's something that comes with maturity. But again, so long as we're aware that we haven't crossed that line into becoming abusive, or that we just enjoy a fight for a fight's sake, and we're doing it because we just want to bully our way, and not bully our position. So I think
Right.
that's a fine balance of checking in with, is it growth on your part, or is it an old habit that's actually not serving you, or is it you evolving into somebody that, hey, I have a right to be myself. I have a right to express who I am, in a kind, respectful manner.
Well, the thing is, there's part of it is purely maturity. It is recognizing that I'm not unsafe, that I'm able to stand on my own 2 feet, so to speak.
Hmm.
However, the fight response, holding viewpoints, isn't necessarily as mature as I'd like it to be. There is definitely a part of me that is um, not looking for a solution that's mutually beneficial, which is the whole point. Knowing better but doing better are two different things I've discovered in some cases. In a lot of cases, I'm very good at being aligned with my values and basically looking to find a mutually beneficial solution. But some conversations, I am to enjoy being in the position of trying to be right. Because the whole thing about being right, being happy, it's like there's a part of me that enjoys that. So it's almost like I know that I'm lowering my standards of excellence, so to speak.
I love that, Barry, and I love that you can say it, because the bottom line is we're human, and if we keep ourselves in this tight little box of of always being perfect, it's like
Yeah,
I'm to sort of to own our, oh yeah, that's a bit of a wart, you know.
yeah.
It's like, I think it's really great to have all these quirky things about us. And I was actually thinking about this woman I've been working alongside with in the donation center I've been helping out in for the last 2 months or so. And she's I would describe her as a prickly pear. She's she
Mm-hmm.
comes across as a curmudgeon who says, I don't like people. And I just laugh when I'm around her, because she's a prickly pear, because I think she's got a really sweet inside. She just really, she doesn't want to let it show, and I don't even know if she's really aware of it herself, but I can see it there. But and I can see again that sort of it's again, um, it's one of those visceral responses. It's her way of protecting herself. It's her way of, I'm not going to like you first, because she feels vulnerable. Again, so it's that fight, but it's in a different way. It's a prickly pear way. I just find it so fascinating if we really know what's underneath our behaviors, especially when it's as I say, it's a behavior that impacts a relationship. Like, there's some people that like, oh, she's just too this or too that, and I just don't see that. Can't do it with everybody. I'm not saying I love all the prickly pears in the world by any means. So
Fair enough.
the really get under my skin. But no, it's actually, I would rather a prickly pear with a sweet center than somebody that's saccharine sweet and there's a bitterness inside. Give me
Yeah,
some raw and real than sort of rotten and fake. Let's put it that way. But
absolutely.
yeah. But the other advantage of really knowing what you're sort of, as I said, we can all respond depending on the situation, all these different ways.
Hmm.
But that awareness can prepare us, and it can help us, number one, recover faster, or hopefully not even engage. So I use I can feel it. It's literally, it's because it's a shot of adrenaline in your body. So I can feel my heart beating faster. So that's just immediately an indication right there that I'm getting out of balance.
Hmm.
There's something happening physiologically inside me that has upset my equilibrium, because it is, my heart is pounding. And so there are, and that's not a bad thing. That's your body's way of letting you know that something is going on. That, again, if you're not literally facing the saber-toothed tiger in that moment, and it's just a conversation with your partner, that there's that, when we've talked about this before too, about those old triggers. There's a trigger happening here,
Yeah,
and it's taking over.
it is something that, frankly, it is part of the process of growing up and maturing. And as we talked about how we've changed over the years, that it's I don't say it's amazing, but I'm aware that a lot of people do in fact fall victim to it, because the lack of awareness that people carry around is a little distressing, which is another topic to talk about at some point too. Because awareness really is the key,
Mhm.
and the fight, flight, and freeze, the whole nervous system reactive response is in a lot of ways is unconscious, because it's below that level of, we're not choosing it. It's like
Yeah.
we've deep to let it choose us. So to have the wherewithal to stop when we start to feel that urge come up, whether it is to run, to fight, to do whatever it's going to be, and to just be with it without actually letting it happen is a huge step forward for people. So for all of us, and I work with my clients on this, but self-awareness is to notice what we're feeling, what we're thinking, before we're actually acting on it right away. So there's a chance for us to consider our choices and then decide if it's actually the right thing to do to act on what we're feeling.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said it's, I would almost say it's almost always below our awareness. I mean,
Yeah.
it literally hijacks you before you can even really, with a rational mind, go, oh, I feel like, well, certainly with myself anyway, I'm feeling like I'm getting a little aggressive here, that I want to have a fight. It's like, 0 to 60, I'm already in it.
Right.
So I am feeling it. Like I said, I'm feeling the blood, I'm feeling the heart pounding, I'm feeling the anxiety. And rather than, I love what you said too about, it's not about denying it or fighting it. It's knowing that it's happening, but not to get hijacked by it. To allow that energy to move through you, not at somebody else, but to just dissipate within you and go, okay, I need to take care of myself right now, which I did actually. I knew I was feeling out of
Mhm.
control. So I was like, I'd like to go to bed right now so I can settle, because this feeling is not good for us. It's not good for me, and it's not good for us. And then fortunately we got over it and carried on watching the Oscars. But I was very aware that I had been hijacked, and I needed to sort of uh, take care of myself in that situation, not just for my sake of somebody else, that, because I knew I was in a dysregulated state, and it's not a good thing in a relationship to continue to feed that or push it. It is so, understanding what you need in that moment. Is it to be alone? And
Mhm.
it's not the, I want to be alone because I'm rejecting you. It's more like, I want some alone time because I know I'm dysregulated, and it's not good for the relationship. So
You know, I see.
it's not used as a punishment. And it's not the flight part, which is, I've got to flee this because I'm in danger. It's a conscious, then it's gone from the unconscious to the conscious of, okay, I'm in this state. How do I best take care of myself and my partner in this situation?
Yeah. But that is conscious thought. That's not autopilot, which is the big difference. So yeah, the awareness piece, as we talked about, it gives us freedom to choose what we want to do about the situation that we're discovering reactivity to. And
Yeah.
so this part of this journey, and this is part of the lifelong journey. I mean, being on this journey of growth does require us to check in with ourselves and be aware of what we're going through, what we're feeling, and having response to the awareness, so we don't become just automatically driven like robots. We get to actually choose our responses, because that's frankly what keeps us separate from robots.
No, exactly. And as I'm talking, I'm actually, it's like Dell's confessional. This is me bearing my life here, but I'm aware of another situation about a month ago where my son said something. He's an adult and he's living with me right now in front of my boyfriend, and I experienced it as embarrassing, and I left, and because I was embarrassed. But it was that flight. So instead of going into aggression and fight, I actually went into the flight, and I walked away, and I went to my room, and I was embarrassed. And he came to apologize, and I was able to say, I really appreciate you apologizing. Right now, I am hurt and embarrassed that you would say that in front of somebody. So I need some time to just calm down. So I'm going to stay in my room right now and calm down. And but it was, I mean, I was like, wow, instead, I didn't want to punish him for saying what he did by leaving, but
Hmm.
I also acknowledged that what had been said was hurtful and embarrassing. And I would never. I've always had a very strict rule not to embarrass my children in front of their friends. If you have something to say, you say it privately, not in front of people. And but it was incredible, because the next morning it was like we were completely fine. I mean, we hugged probably a little longer than we normally do. He always comes and gives me a hug goodbye when he goes off to work, and but there was there was no punitive, and I did say that. I said, I'm not being punitive right now. I am hurt and I'm embarrassed and I need some space. But thank you for the apology. As I was still very stirred up. I was aware that I was stirred up, but the
Understood.
conscious was, which again is a moment of like, oh my God, how far I've grown. Because, 20 years ago, could I have done that? Would I have wanted to punish somebody that had hurt me or embarrassed me? Or if, from my perception, would I have
Mhm.
sold it along? So it was again, it's okay to acknowledge our growth and to
Right.
really own what we're feeling and experiencing, but also own our recovery time.
That's the
And
thing. Yeah. It is. I mean, this process is about self, but it does involve other relationships, and having the vulnerability and the humility to let somebody else know you need some space to work through something you're going through yourself is really a smart act to take care of yourself. Because sometimes if we have to defend ourselves to somebody else because we don't want to tell them what's going on, or we want to make sure they're okay, we're out of alignment. But if we say, you know what, I'm just feeling out of sorts right now, just take care of myself, whatever that is, give me an hour, 5 minutes, 2 days, whatever it is, I'll get back in touch with you. That's a self-respecting and a self-care act that we can do for ourselves, because it's so sometimes tempting to gloss over our own feelings to be okay in the situation. And so having that honesty and, again, awareness is profound, because a lot of people don't do that. And this is the thing, that some people, it's their next level of growth to actually take responsibility for their own space, their own needs, their own healing. So yeah.
yeah, I was very aware that with as a parent that, with my mother, it was she was very good at freezing you out for a long time. I mean, that apology had to keep, it took days to win her back. When you pissed her off, it was she emotionally like, you were done.
Mhm.
So I was very aware that I didn't want to do that, but at the same time, I didn't want to fall into a pattern that I have had over the years, which is the second I hear sorry, I go, "That's okay, nothing. It's okay, everything's fine." And it was not self honoring. It was a overreaction because I had witnessed somebody that used uh, the rejection of an apology as a punishment. So I never wanted to be that punishing person. So anytime somebody says sorry, it's like, okay, slate's wiped clean, everything's fine. And I realized that that wasn't honoring myself either. That was, again, people pleasing, codependent, trying to take care of somebody else's feelings above my own. So it's wonderful when you do see this stuff works. I mean, it takes work, but if we keep having that self-awareness that we keep talking about, knowing our emotional triggers, knowing what's old baggage, and and again, forgiving ourselves for being, unconsciously hijacked, but knowing
Mhm.
that it doesn't have to, it's not permanent, doesn't have to create damage. You can get over it. With the awareness, you can put all the pieces together very quickly and go, oh, God, now I know what's going on. But don't berate yourself. We're human. We're not going to be perfect, as Barry said. We are going to do and say things and have emotions that are, just part of being human.
Absolutely. That's why we're here, isn't it?
Exactly. I had a friend once that said, there's plenty of time to be a 100% spiritual when you're dead.
Yeah. Makes
You know,
sense.
it really, it's like, yeah, just embrace our human aspect, our foibles and, you know, quirky little bits. It's all beautiful and it all makes us unique and special. So,
Exactly.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Barry. Thank you for another great chat. And we will see everyone next week.
Take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.